Compliance is a profession where people work tirelessly to make the world a better place. And there are hundreds of amazing and inspiring women who have helped the field develop into what it is today. Great Women in Compliance is part of the Compliance Podcast Network, so join Mary Shirley and Lisa Fine as they talk with women in compliance who are making a difference.
Welcome to the Great Women in Compliance podcast with Lisa Fine and Mary Shirley. I'm Mary Shirley, and today I'm delighted to welcome Scott Davison to the podcast. Scott is our first Kiwi guest, which I'm obviously very pleased about as a fellow New Zealand national. And I first met Scott when I was his compliance officer at an energy company, Aggreko, and he was a marvellous support to the compliance function, taking it seriously and facilitating a very fruitful business trip of mine to Kuwait to conduct compliance training. And this is where Scott was based at the time as the country head. Since then, Scott has found himself responsible for the compliance function as part of his commercial director duties in a new company, and he has been a vocal supporter of women subject matter experts in compliance and made introductions to grow the network of women in compliance. Scott, welcome. Please tell us a little bit more about your background and how you found yourself on the other side of the fence building a compliance program.
Firstly, thank you, Mary. Compliance and my background. So I started off, as Mary said, working in the Middle East. It's predominantly where I first got a touch of a need for compliance, ethics and compliance, working for Aggreko, working in Kuwait, a fantastic country, amazing culture, but also the businesses operate at a certain pace, and it became pretty quickly apparent that there were certain things that needed to be fixed, and it needed dissected and done in bits and in a certain sequence. And the first part was the people. So that's really where I started looking. The people element was what first got me interested in compliance, because without looking after them, then the rest of the requirements from a layman's perspective were irrelevant. So does that answer that first question, Mary?
Absolutely, it does. And then how about nowadays? How are you more involved in compliance in your current roles and responsibilities?
It's the same sort of thing. Now it is about compliance with an a UK law. It's on with a UK law, so in line with the Companies Act 2006. So that's where compliance comes from now. So that's more a legislative requirement. And in the UK, it's a lot more mature than it is in the Middle East. The Middle East is heading in the direction for sure, and it's got a lot of local GCC nationals who are highly skilled and trained, but also a lot of Western expats who are at the top of their profession, helping build these companies within the Middle East to meet a Western standard, such as ISO and others.
Mm-hmm. Great. And you're now working in the UK, of course, after that stint in the Middle East. How has your risk profile changed with the different geographies? The risk, yeah. So the United Kingdom, because it's more mature, the risk profile is lower. You have less open or loose ends. Where in the Middle East, and I even found it with a corporate such as Aggreko, with Hertz, who I worked for subsequently, that they work at such, as I said before, such a pace that quite often it's a sales-focused agenda. So they're always looking at how to gain revenue. There's a lot of things then are left at the wayside, such as contract compliance, technical compliance, things that open you up to contractual disputes, late payments. Then those late payments then put you in breach of local laws around creditworthiness, especially in the Middle East. Businesses can be fined, or even leaders can be imprisoned for falling into a defaulter situation. So it's all, and they're all like a domino effect. So you have to address the front end, the people awareness, so making your team aware of what their duties and responsibilities are, get them to own their duties and responsibilities, but make sure that what they're expected to do is in line with what they need to do to make sure the company remains wherever they are working within the law. And no matter how fast the sales requirement is, don't lose focus of what you need to do things right. And that's I think the big thing. There's a lot of opportunity in the Middle East to skip things because you want to get the money, because that's the nature of culture. where in the United Kingdom, it is in the reverse. You'll see a lot of here design, compliance, regulatory sign-off, going through all of the agencies that you need, such as environmental, etc., in an engineering situation. And then you get to let's talk about finance. So it's here, for me, that's where the risk exposure comes from, differently in the two places.
Yeah. And is there anything specific that compliance officers in Kuwait should look out for as a common compliance risk?
It's compliance officers. I would say just understanding the team that you've got, because if you've got you've got visibility into your business, and you have the ability to be able to look into such as finance and understand that if you drill into it, then it's going to be true and it's going to be transparent, such as the probity register. So in the Middle East, there has been on lots of occasions cases where people have tried to give gifts and all sorts of things, which is against any corporate guidance nowadays, but it's still considered to be a social norm within these countries. A lot of companies are pushing back, but you can still take some of these small gifts as long as you record them, or you have a process of saying, no, I'm sorry, we can't record that gift, but we're going to record the fact you offered it to us, so that then you can say, hey, look, guys, we've had X amount of money put to our way, or we've had these things put to us. What that does is you're creating an umbrella that protects your team from people saying, hey, I think your team been taking some money. No, hang on. We're transparent. We've got transparency, and that visibility, it gives the team, especially some of them that come from or expats from the other side of the world, it gives them that protection that their livelihoods are going to be safeguarded by you as a business leader. And and that's just one small aspect. And as soon as you invest in giving them security and knowing that you're protecting them, they will give you then more of their trust, more of their respect, and they will do more for you. And it becomes cyclic, and you end up becoming a partnership, and they drive the business, not just you as the figurehead at the top. So I hope that covers that point.
Yeah, it's a really lovely one, because for me that leads into servant leadership as well. And I know that you and I have had in a previous discussion sort of the doing away of hierarchy and being seen as peers and equals between team leaders and those that they have the role of supervising. So I really like that you weave that thread into it as well.
We have I'll give just one very short case study.
Sure.
In Kuwait, we had a number of expatriate employees, around 36, from a number of countries, 7 countries, speaking 29 languages. They were just the most amazing group of human beings I've ever had the chance to work with. However, it wasn't always that way. When I first started, there was no trust, there was no respect, there was no understanding of who we were. The first thing we did is we created an environment where we were the same. So we had a canteen. We put our own stamp on the canteen. We made it bigger, and we decided to eat at one table. So we had one table where you had to sit with all these other nationalities, with all of these other skill groups, with all these other age demographics, and you had to eat food, a simple thing that we do every day. We're all away from our families. We're all in a foreign environment. And what it did is it built understanding that, hey, we're all exactly the same. I might have a job as country manager, or you might have the job as service admin. Or to this day, my T-boy or the office boy that I had in Kuwait, Rasika Virakudi from Sri Lanka, he was my equal. He sat and ate food beside me. We laughed, we joked, we talked, and we spoke in an egalitarian fashion. And from that foundation, when I walked out of that kitchen, I said, listen, guys, I need you to do X, Y, and Z for me today. Can you do it? They'd go, yeah, sure we can. And they would go out and go that extra mile. And it became a focal point for us about showing that we were the same. And as soon as you remove that hierarchical point of view, you get a buy-in to the ethics. So we had guys that were reporting health and safety near misses. Beforehand, they were too scared. They were too scared to do it because they thought it was blame culture. I removed the blame and said, I don't want the blame culture to be the reason why you don't report them. I want you to report them because you want to go home fit and well and safe, and you want your colleagues to do the same, because that's all I want to see. And then they got it, and we had the highest number of reported near misses, and people were saying, well, you've got an unsafe environment. I said, no, I think what you've actually got is you've got an environment where they feel safe enough and they feel appreciated that they can report what is actually happening everywhere else. So, being the same, I think it was essential.
Yeah, I think that's right. And what you have identified, I think, was also discovered in psychological safety studies, where people were accused of, if there were lots of reports of speaking up, that meant that cultures of psychological safety had more harm or more risk in them, when in actual fact that's not the case. They just had better ability for people to feel that their management was approachable in terms of being able to speak up. And so I think that's a great example of, the literal breaking of the bread together at the table made you approachable as a manager. So beyond the respect side that you spoke of and the reciprocal relationship, you also showed that as a manager, you had an open door. And in fact, people didn't even have to go to your door to find you because you were sitting right there with them at lunch. So that's a wonderful case study. And thank you for sharing it. And, I don't want to criticize the places that I've worked in as a foreigner, because like you, I've had some really lovely experiences. But it is really funny, in places where there are high numbers of foreign workers, that you do tend to gravitate towards the lunch tables where, it's familiar people from your home country or very similar. And so when you mentioned that, it brought back, a lot of images of that kind of grouping at the lunch table. And everyone's very friendly towards each other in the different groups, but the intermingling isn't always there. So I love that you were able to overcome that and show value in the mixing and mingling. Yeah,
well, it was something that we took as a real badge of honor over the time I was there. The team wanted to do a sport, so I provided funding for a basketball team. We were the worst basketball team in Kuwait, by the way. We have got the record of losing every single match we played in 3 years. But without, and this is a testimony to the amazing individuals that played. We had a team full of people from the Philippines. We had an Egyptian player. We had several players from India. We had all of these people playing in this team, but they had just one thing: they just wanted to enjoy themselves week after week. I don't know how they would have celebrated had they would have actually won. But they had one rule, and they said that I couldn't play. Oh. And they said, we've come here, and I appreciated that, because I was terrible anyway. I was awful at basketball, and not that I could have made them any worse, but it was their opportunity to go out there, and I provided the platform, and I sat back and watched them every week, and they went from strength to strength, and they got tighter, and I had people from traditional cultures that were like two opposite ends of a magnet. In the end, they were bonding and they were talking. And in my last month there, we ran a sports day. We played football, we played darts, we had a barbecue, and we had the most amazing, just random, spontaneous conversations and joke. And I've got the photographs to this day. And that was the evolution of when I came in. They were siloed to their culture, to their language within their culture. And they had what would you say? The dislike for each other's silo. And as soon as you broke those down, the power of them as a unit, they were the most. So some of their skill sets were incredible. I had guys there who had 25 years in power generation, and as soon as I unleashed that ability as a team, wow, they did some amazing work. Really did.
Fantastic. And so I'm keen to hear, Scott, how has your thought process towards business changed since you've put on the compliance hat?
Right, I got told this a wee while ago. I've become a risk manager, and it dawned on me that before you do anything operationally or commercially, you have to assess and evaluate the risk. And that's at any cycle of any revenue generation. And whether it's pre-design, concept, anything, there is a risk factor you must take into it. Now, risk to revenue, risk to business, over leveraging, over extending your people too much, damaging your current customer base. But that risk analysis is the thing that is where I sit now. I've still got the commercial head, I've still got the operational, but that risk and the ability to be able to sit back and say, right, what have I actually got in front of me? How viable is this proposition? Is this going to be, could this produce revenue for us? If it does produce revenue, is it good revenue? Is it ethically clean revenue? For example, are we trading and exporting to the right countries? We're not breaking FCPA guidance. All of these things which you need to be aware of, but quite often people don't see it because they go, well, I'm going to make £1 million. Fantastic, you make £1 million. You could be at risk of losing 5 times that in punitive damages. So that risk aspect now has really helped me. And I did the summer academy at Aggreko in Austria in 2017. And that was surrounded by compliance professionals from the legal profession from all over the world.